Welcome to the book club. Today we talk about Benjamin Franklin. He's a great Lebanese man.
Ben
Hamid Frank.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our part 2 of 3 of our book club for Walter Isaacson's Benjamin Franklin, An American Life. Today we'll be talking about chapters 8 through 12. So this spans Benjamin's life, including his times in London, starting off in 1757. A bit of history from Boston and Philly also, and then ending with his time in Paris all the way to 1778. So today we'll cover a few topics. Number one, we're going to talk about what we think are some of Benjamin's habits, his attributes that led to his success and him being such a remarkable person. Number two, we'll be talking about the British Empire's taxes and how that led to the revolution. And number three, we're going to talk about his relationship with his family and also with his surrogate families and the difficulties of family life in the 1700s. So let's jump right into it. So this guy is amazing, right? He's a very, very lovable character, and he has tons of stuff that make him so remarkable. But I wanted to talk with you guys and ask you what you think are some of the habits and attributes that he has that led to his success.
He was the Dos Equis guy of the 17th century.
The most interesting.
Hell yeah.
That's
So
a good
think,
one. Yeah, I agree.
I think the first point that I would like to bring across is his ability to listen before talking. And I think in a way that's what permitted him to befriend most of the people he met and be loved by them too.
Makes him more likable.
Yeah, exactly. To listen first. It's something that we should all practice more, I think.
Where I think it all originated was when he realized when he was very young that he could analyze every conversation like afterwards and figure out what worked and what didn't work, and then learn lessons with them and then apply them. And I learned that from the car business like 10 years ago. Every time you meet a client, after the client leaves, why did you get a sale or why didn't you get a sale? But it's like he was doing this for every conversation that he had.
At a young age.
At a very young age. And that's how he got to realize how people actually interact and how you get people to like you.
Mm-hmm. There is a part where he mentions he's looking at two people talking to each other. Both of them are puffing their chests and saying what they're good at. And he found it so ridiculous that he, vowed to never do that himself.
Yeah, and like he watching them just waiting for the other guy to take a breather just to interject and then say something, and then nobody likes that.
I still see that quite often today.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of doing it.
Of course.
we all are, for sure.
We all want the other person in the conversation to know what our experience is, but sometimes that might come off as being arrogant, right? So his way of doing it, being humble, definitely endears him to other people. You could see it in the book.
You'll want to be well liked.
Yeah, his curiosity is probably one of his top attributes that led
for
to
sure.
his success. I mean, the kid Benjamin Franklin was like building flippers out of wood so he could swim faster.
Yeah.
In his later years, he was interested in diplomacy and electricity, and it's like, wow. I mean, the curious person just finds a way to, find interesting things and, make them their own.
Towards like a diverse field, like from science to politics to conversations to just like.
Well, that's probably the only reason he went into science, just because he was curious.
Yeah.
Like he was only looking at it as in a pragmatic way. So it's not like he wanted to go into field and try to revolutionize everything. He was curious about it. Hey, how can I improve this? And he had fun with it.
And it wasn't so much for the why, it was for what can we use this for?
Yeah.
Like the application of oil on water, hoping to spread waves and make the ships go faster and smoother. The idea is cool. Obviously, it did not work, but he did turn it into a magic trick with putting oil on the tip of his cane. I think it's when he got to France where he dipped his cane and then the water just like leveled, steadied. Yeah.
And that's one of the interesting things that I realized is that Benjamin was dabbling in a lot of things, and obviously some of them worked out great, and we're talking about him today because they did work out great, but a lot of his stuff didn't work out, and that's okay. Like his fireplace just never really took off, right? His idea of convection never really took off, but he dabbled in so many things that.
Well, I think he used though that idea to. There's still some stoves that are called Franklin stoves.
Yeah.
It's just like they took it and then it was not practical.
Yeah, they tweaked it.
They just tweaked it.
They tweaked it.
Yeah, but it's still his ideas on it are still there.
Right on.
For me, the biggest thing is he's the first one to theorize that you're catching a cold from contagion. Contagion. Contagion, yeah. Instead of just being cold.
Yeah.
Right? He observed that he was cold a lot of times and didn't catch a cold, so couldn't just be it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like all the way to there.
Yeah,
People thought that you were catching a cold because you were cold.
Yeah, like anyone else, he was asking himself questions, but then even going even further and trying to find out why, because he said himself, like, I've been through cold weather so many times without catching a cold. But then he noticed that sometimes enclosed in a certain room, probably we'll get into it in his sex cults, caught a cold because people were coughing around him,
Just put that in there, eh?
Well, hey, it's an
Rumored.
Stick around. We're gonna talk about sex cult.
So Benjamin Franklin, to me, he reminded me, and he was a great example of the compound effect, the book that we read a few weeks ago, because he did so many things consistently, and he dabbled in so many things consistently, that as he grew older, he ultimately started gaining more and more and more knowledge, and was able to converse with different people at different times and different topics. I think that's what made him so likable, because of his knowledge, his understanding of just people in general.
Yeah. So those were all great things that made him, the man that he was.
What about the air bath? We never talked about that. That was huge.
Yeah.
He would sit naked every morning.
He had
for
habits,
about an hour. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna incorporate that into my morning routine. Being naked for half an hour, just reading.
Half an hour to
To
an
me,
hour.
the air bath just boils down to meditation.
Yeah.
Just time alone.
I agree.
right?
Well, it's
Same
like
thing.
walking barefoot. Do you guys do that often?
I'm always barefoot.
As soon as I get home, I remove my socks. I feel like it's something I need to do. I don't know.
I'm the opposite.
It's
Yeah?
good for your. It's good for.
Well,
your
you
body.
have hardwood floors.
It's
I
good
have
for
carpet.
your.
Yeah.
So I think it is part of meditation, and sitting, like, he would sit completely naked and write. We all know that writing is huge. Like, writing your thoughts down makes you think more clearly. And he was completely naked. Like, he was free. So, free body, free thoughts. Pretty cool habit.
I wonder if he
start
was naked
implementing
while
that.
he wrote his autobiography.
Probably.
I know it's something we didn't write down. It's a big part of what we just read. How he was the first one to read to write a self-help book for the middle class, but he wrote it as a letter to his son.
Oh.
Like, it's freaking genius.
Yeah.
Because they had a few autobiographies back then, right? But he was the first one to write it in a way where it was to be used as a guideline to how to get successful from scratch, from rags to riches, basically.
Was also the best-selling book of that time.
Yeah.
We have to move on to the
Yeah,
second
for sure.
topic.
Let's do it.
So we want to talk about the British ownership of the colonies. So it's 13 colonies, all the way from New Jersey all the way down to, I guess, South Carolina. Would have been the furthest south. 13 colonies. They were all independently owned, but they were all part of, the monarchy's ownership. And the British did have some taxes on the colonies, and that really pissed off some people.
And at this point in time, Benjamin Franklin is in Britain. He's not in Philadelphia.
No, and the first sign of trouble, I mean, there was some rumblings before that, but the Tea Party in Boston, right, where the Sons of Liberty sort of took all of the shipment from the West Indian Company, what's it called? Their shipment of tea, and they just dumped it in the river. That is when the revolution sort of got kicked off.
Must have
They don't
made
say
some-
that in the book, but I think that's when it is.
Well, and
Classic
the one thing I think for people that don't know that time too much, the one thing that's very different than today is that there was a very strong loyalty to England back then. Like people, you're born into it. You're proud to be from that empire. Like obviously in Canada here, we're technically still part of that empire, but ask people if they're proud of that. Like, most people don't care.
Yeah.
But back then it was important because they could rely on them. They could be defended.
Mhm.
But then at one point they became greedy.
In some ways, Canada might have a better relationship with the Queen and the Crown because the Crown smartened up because they lost
Yeah.
the United States.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to lose, the North also,
Mhm.
right?
They became so greedy. Like with
Yeah.
the taxes didn't make sense, and the distinction that Benjamin Franklin had was really big because you're taxing imports and exports, so from country to country, and they were okay with that. But then when they started taxing stuff that was produced inside the colonies, so like I produce a newspaper. You're buying that newspaper, and then Britain, all the way over there, is taxing what we're doing in here.
Mhm.
So that became too much, and it's the first sign that people went like, "Hey, no, that's not happening."
Called
And
a
they-
Stamp Act.
That's the Stamp Act, exactly. And they tried to reverse that at one point, but then the damage was done. They realized no, they are greedy, and slowly the revolution started. It took years to actually happen,
Yeah.
but the seed was planted.
And Mr. Franklin was in Britain throughout this, when this was happening, trying to lobbying against it, right? And I think at first he thought it was a good idea until he started receiving letters from his friends from Philly. And that's when he heard about what was it called? The Paxton Boys?
Mhm.
That they were just attacking people and,
Yeah, just based
a
on
bunch of
them,
anarchists.
them being Indian, them being native. They would
Yeah,
just
just
want to
killing away.
kill everybody,
Yeah.
right? But Benjamin sort of was a voice of reason for the time, saying, if a redheaded man with freckles kills my family, am I going to want to kill every redheaded man with freckles? No, I mean, it's not
Mhm.
because,
But because
somebody's,
this guy's native,
Yeah.
then I blame all natives.
yeah.
Doesn't
So
make any sense.
Yeah.
it was interesting to see that the conflicts that were existing, in the 1700s still exist today. There's still some assholes today. There's
Oh,
still
yeah.
some Paxton Boys today,
Yeah.
right? Where everything is black or white, and there's always some nuances.
Mm.
And it was refreshing to see that those things were still happening in the 1700s,
Mhm.
and it's not a today problem,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we do feel like the world is going to shit,
Yeah.
right? But it's refreshing to see
Well,
that
you know
it's
what?
always been that
One
way.
of the there are some books that are written on how the progression of like violence and like plagues and all that kind of stuff throughout humanity, how good we have it today. We don't realize it
Yeah.
because we only see the bad stuff.
Right.
But there are it's like 1,000 times better than even 200 years ago. So that could be one of our next books, just to be positive and
Yeah.
just say, hey, yeah, we are going somewhere.
If you guys want to feel good about what's going on today, and you should, I really believe that we all should be
Right.
super
Yeah.
thankful that we live in 2020. Read anything written by Steven Pinker, or just watch one of his videos.
Yep.
He's a professor, and he just points out everything that's good, about the world.
Mhm.
And it was interesting to see what's going on in the 1700s. They still had the same problems, but much, much
Well,
bigger.
news also
Yeah.
travels much, much, much faster now. Like
Yeah.
within seconds than back then. Back then, it would take a month for you to hear a rumor that happened in the U.S.
But were you surprised that a letter could go from Canada to anywhere? Like, I think he mentions Quebec to Boston in
New
6
York,
weeks.
New York,
New York to
New York to
Philly?
to Philly, 24 hours.
That's crazy.
That's
Well, like
fast.
after,
That's
like,
fast.
but that's a testament to how good he was because it wasn't like that when he took over.
No,
He took
Mhm.
over, rewrote everything, went into depth to try to reroute everything, and then bang, it works that efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't drive cars.
No.
no.
Like
What is it,
it's in
horse and
carriage, horses and carriage, and you do
Yeah.
like 24 hours back and forth like this. This is crazy.
Yeah,
It's
seriously.
nuts.
It was.
We don't
nuts.
have that today.
It must be nice though. You're on a horse,
Well, it's a different lifestyle.
patient, no phones distracting you. I wonder if they were. I mean, I'm sure the stress level back then was probably the same, maybe a little bit more,
Of
maybe a little bit less
course.
than now. It's
Just
just
a different
right?
stress.
Yeah.
Different type of stress.
Riding along on your horse and you freaking get an axe behind your head to steal your shit. Like,
We'll
know?
get the times and our third topic, but right now let's just stick to the topic of high taxes, right? Do you guys know what the rate was for taxes back then?
No.
I
No.
mean, today it's getting pretty high,
It's never been this high.
and we should find this out for next week. Was it anything near what it is today? And why are we okay today with being taxed
So are you
at 49%? You know,
Oh, okay.
from
So
our-
you're talking about income tax.
Yeah.
Okay, not like sales tax.
not sales,
Okay.
because that's also high, right?
well, it's not like it
13.
went up in one shot. It's like gradually throughout hundreds of years, just and here we
Yeah.
are. Like back then, a little bit more was like, hell no. Like we're gonna start a mob
Well,
and
it was
burn
new,
down
right?
your
So-
Because
buildings.
if you go from 1% to 2%, that's double. But in Ontario, we went from, we're at 13% sales tax right now.
Yeah.
That's a lot, right? Everything.
It's just
Every
that
service.
you pay income tax, and then
Sales
you
tax.
pay sales tax, and then you pay corporate tax, right? And then it's just like, and then you pay land transfer tax, and then you pay property tax. And then
Well, that's kind of the thing
it's
too. So like
so
people
many
say, "Oh, I'm taxed whatever percentage," but that's not true. You're taxed more than that because whatever. So you get $100, you have $60 left after taxes, depending on your income bracket, and then you're trying to buy something. And then when you buy that thing, you're going to be taxed on that,
Mm.
right? So your $60 that's left is not the same amount that really is. So really, you're not taxed at 40%. You're taxed at 50%. It's tax over tax.
So what would a tea party look like today?
Well, you can do tea parties at the Chateau Laurier.
Oh, yeah? What are they serving?
Tea.
A tea party today, like stacks of money, just burning it. I don't know, like stop using the money. Cryptocurrency is a little bit of a tea party, no?
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think
Just
that's a good point.
starting our own money and a big middle finger to the guys up top, right?
It's just not global. It's globally accepted by the people, but it's just they're not ready to govern it.
I
That's
think,
the-
well, since the Tea Party, was there anything else? That's the only thing I can think of. What else could you do to like disrupt the entire government? Mobs, like
Amazon's
Sure.
doing it right now.
yeah,
Not paying any taxes whatsoever.
Yeah.
Figuring ways. Yeah.
Yeah. They're sheltering everything in other countries.
Apple did it for years.
Yeah. I don't know if they still are.
Well, then when Trump came in, they changed the tax brackets, and then it was more advantageous to bring it back. So that's where they were bringing hundreds of billions at a time back to the U.S.
Yeah. So I wonder, we'll find that out, what was the tax rate back then.
I
But
sort
I
of get
care.
the feeling that he did mention it. I just don't remember.
I can just.
I guarantee you, like today, it's
So
much,
what year are
much
we
higher.
looking at?
Oh,
Yeah.
What year are we looking at, Marty?
my guess is
17,
triple what it was then.
So
70.
Why would they
Yeah,
get
17,
so
70.
revolted, and then today we're just like, yeah.
Well, it's a difference.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like right now, we have so much good things coming with those taxes. I think we're taxed too much, but like that's a different point. Like we have stability, we have the roads, we
Okay.
have healthcare.
I have the number here in 1776.
It was
You guys want to take a guess?
I'm gonna guess they were taxing 10% on everything.
10%,
15.
15,
5.
5%, 3%.
3%, and it caused a revolution.
3%. The income tax was officially born, imposed at a rate of 3% on all citizens who earn more than $800 a year.
Makes me very sad.
Yeah. But as it turned out, this wasn't enough to fund the war.
And it
To fund the
caused
war?
Yeah.
Right.
the English War.
But hold on a second here. So in oh no, that's different. That's different. Sorry. Yeah.
So let's get our facts straight for next week
Yeah.
and come back to this because I think it's a very interesting topic.
But 1776, $800 a year, plus you're paying 3%.
Peanuts. And
Yeah.
people were
3%
revolted.
of $800 is $24.
Yeah, it caused a revolution. Today, it's like
Yeah.
you make 100 grand, you're paying out like 20. What is it? The income tax rate.
You
at
paid
100.
more sales tax buying your Apple Watch for $100.
It's resale, Facebook Marketplace.
Okay.
So I don't know if there was no sales. tax.
Whoever bought it before you
Yeah.
did.
So to finish the revolution, I think one thing that we need to touch on is the Americans were struggling to either be completely independent or to be independent and still be within the guidelines of Britain, right?
They wanted to fix things.
They wanted to fix
Franklin
things
wanted to fix
Yeah.
things, but it was the Brits were just saying, this is it's
because
the
it
way
was
is, or-
either you're part of the royalty family or you're just
I think-
another peasant.
Canada has the arrangement with the crown that Benjamin wanted to have
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
What Britain wanted to do at the time is to make sure that the American colonies were not manufacturing anything, because they wanted them to import everything from England, so we
Yeah.
create a bunch of jobs in England. That was their whole theory.
Right.
But then Franklin's theory was, well, you know what? We're growing faster than you are. At one point, you're never
Mhm.
going to be able to manufacture everything, so we have
Yeah.
to start doing it ourselves. And they didn't want that.
That's also why he went on a trip throughout Europe
Mhm.
to see
And
the
then
industrial
Then
revolution.
he went to Ireland, which
Yeah.
had the same thing, and then realized they're all broke. Like, it's just a bunch of poor people.
Yeah.
Nobody
But
has
he,
money
He visited a few factories, and I think it gave him more ideas, right?
in England. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's jump in our third topic, which was Benjamin's relationship with his family
Let me
in
first say
America.
about that to tie it in. His wife that he left behind in Philly was a badass.
Deborah?
She took care of herself,
Yeah.
raised the kids, and fended for herself too. Because while this revolution was happening, Benjamin Franklin had a lot of fans, but also had a lot of enemies in Philly. And then the angry mob were going to burn down his house, and she just like took out a few guns, and local people just went in to help her and just fended for themselves and saved the house.
Nah,
Which
man.
after
Debbie
she
was a
died,
badass.
That's a strong woman.
yeah, and he took over the house when he came back to Philly finally after she passed, unfortunately. But yeah,
And that's a great segue to our next topic.
Yeah. So Deborah was Benjamin's wife.
Yeah.
And he really enjoyed her company, but he didn't find her mentally stimulating. Right.
Mhm.
She was a good woman. He enjoyed her frugality, which is a weird thing. When we think about
she's a good
today.
housewife.
Great housewife. But throughout his travels, on the last trip he had to London, he was gone 10 years. And, his wife died in
Yeah.
that time.
Well, it's more than she died. Like, in my opinion, that's what I wrote down. Like, his wife wrote to him that the reason of her stroke was that she was too lonely, and he still decided to stay there.
Yeah,
He's a bit of an asshole in that
Well,
regard.
you don't care that much.
At the
No.
end of the day, he didn't even attend his kid's wedding.
no, exactly.
Well, he chose to leave.
Yeah.
Probably one of the reasons he left, because he was getting married.
He did try to get her to cross over and go to Britain. She never wanted to. I don't think she even wanted to leave like 10 feet away from where she was born, right? So she just stayed put the entire time, raising the family, taking care of the house. And she tried to get him to come back to Philly a few times.
Yeah.
And he never wanted to.
I think, maybe not in Benjamin Franklin's defense, but I think back in the day, this was very normal because of travel time. I think men, I remember my grandparents would tell me stories where my grandpa would literally leave during the war for 4 or 5 months. And my grandma was raising 6, 7 kids.
What time
on
was
her
this?
own.
Which war?
This was probably the Second World War.
So he would leave for months.
He would go to France
Wow.
because Lebanon was a French colony.
True. Yeah.
So he would go to France and he would fight for the French army. Right? And he would leave this woman with many kids.
Oh man.
Now, he may not have been in the World War II, but it was around the ripple effects of
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Of course.
right?
The only difference, I think, is that was because of war.
Yeah.
Franklin made a choice of staying there for a very long time. Like he, more than once, he was writing back to the colonies saying, "Well, you know what? There's nothing I can do here, but hopefully he can stay." And he just stayed there, continued doing his thing, and then I should come back, but I'll go on a summer vacation to there and there. Like his vacation was not coming back to see his wife; it was just going to visit another country.
Yeah.
Like yes, travel is a big thing, but he made a conscious choice to stay there.
Let's be real. The guy was a party animal. Like there's records, man. There's
High on shrooms, just traveling the
maybe
world.
not high on shrooms, but he enjoyed his alcohol. He enjoyed hanging out with the elites, and I think it benefited him to hang out with the elites.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what they did. Like they didn't, want to hang out with their wives. Their wives were just there to take care of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was then, though.
Yeah.
So let's talk about his relationship with his surrogate families.
Miss Stevenson.
So he doesn't talk about, having sex with these ladies in the book, but come on, guys.
Well, one of his friends did write a letter to Deborah warning her of what was happening in London.
She's taking care of him like a wife would.
Yeah.
Without saying, they're.
And he knew about that letter when it was being sent too.
Yeah.
Like he kind of used that letter to try to entice her to come to England.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. And
We'll
I
see.
have a theory that's probably wrong, but the dates on some of the people that were born, it's kind of hard to know how real they are. And they kind of point out that a lot of things you're not sure exactly when they were born. What if Polly was his daughter?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he attend
But
Polly's wedding?
He attended Polly's wedding.
And he walked her down the aisle.
Walked
I
her
think
down
she
the
was
aisle.
only-
His letters were freaky as hell, though. Like, it was
Well,
borderline sexual, so that's weird.
flirting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very flirtatious.
And he had experience with bastard children. I mean, his son was an
William,
illegitimate.
A bastard.
Yeah, bastard son. So, I mean, for him to have another one in Polly, that's... I don't know, man.
It's
I
just
think,
think it's a possibility.
yeah.
And then he had Mrs. Stevens that was there. That obviously there was a relationship there. Let's not kid ourselves.
Everyone has a taboo. And and somebody,
We don't know everything.
yeah, we don't. And Benjamin Franklin's stature, we're gonna hear a lot of rumors.
Yeah.
Like the elites and the Illuminati, like he's been connected to the Illuminati. He's been connected.
Well,
to,
he did talk about the Freemasons.
Yeah.
A few chapters ago. I think that was in the first week.
And that's even older than his Junto. That's an
He
old
enjoyed the idea of the Freemasons, and that's, like you said, that's why he created his club.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
he wanted
maybe-
to create a club for the middle class, and the Freemasons was not that, right?
It was more of an elitist
Yeah.
club. Today, I'd say the Freemasons is like middle class
Is it?
Well, right now, Freemasons, it's more about
community.
community giving back to charity, organizing events.
It's a frat club.
Yeah,
essentially.
It
That's
is,
what
and I think it's different too. Like, I was curious when I first learned about it. I looked into didn't plan on joining, but just curious to know what it took, and it doesn't take much.
You have to ask one.
Yeah,
To become one, you have to ask one.
it doesn't take much to be in.
Yeah.
No.
Hmm.
Like tomorrow, we want to be in Freemasons. It won't take much. Like a couple of weeks, we're in.
The lodge is few clicks from here.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting times back then. Having a relationship with your family back home. There's no email. There's no Facebook.
What's
I know,
what's
there's
what blows my mind is that people would not live that long back then. This guy lived to
82, 83?
80, yeah, and like he would leave years at a time, knowing darn well that it could be his last trip.
Yeah.
So
Well, on his
Can you
trip to
imagine saying
Quebec,
bye
he thought he
back
was
then?
gonna.
yeah, and regained some force and came
Yeah.
back. Yeah, it's definitely a very, very different reading about this and comparing today's life to back then.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going for a trip. Comes back 10 years later. Everyone
interesting.
died. Like, whew.
I'd be interested to know how many letters this guy wrote in his life.
Every morning.
Every
Naked.
morning to people naked.
Every morning to people naked.
That's a good title of a book. Benjamin Franklin and the Naked Letters.
Yeah.
The naked letters.
It's like a chicken soup by the soul book.
I'll try to find that out for next week. That'd be interesting to know.
so I was telling you guys about this Hellfire Club that he was.
I want to learn more about that.
I have it up right here. So basically, Hellfire Club was a name for several exclusive clubs for high society individuals. So basically, intellectuals. You've got poets, you've got philosophers, you've got presidents, prime ministers, princes. They all join into this club and they do some freaky shit, right?
And Gordon Ramsay's cooking for all of them.
Yeah.
Epstein was ahead of it.
And honestly, it was almost like an escape for all these high elitists.
Pressure release.
And there's a lot of there's
Literally.
apparently some evidence, some strong evidence that Benjamin Franklin was part of this elite group. I mean, and it would make perfect sense because he's around these people all the time.
This is off. It's not from the book.
This is not
Just
from
so
this
we're
book.
clear, yeah.
No, yeah, this is just my own research because I love, what do you call that? Controversies, right? So he was apparently friends with Sir Francis Dashwood.
Who's that?
He was the one that created this Hellfire Club. Okay, and he had a bad reputation,
Jeffrey Epstein's great-grandfather.
basically.
But she did not kill himself.
I don't know what happens to Francis
putting it
Dashwood,
out
but if
there.
you're interested in understanding more about just maybe that secret controversies or whatever the case may be, there's some really interesting stuff in history on the big elites like Benjamin Franklin.
Is there a Benjamin Franklin movie out there that we know of?
No, but there's a lot of biographies on.
Yeah, and documentaries.
Be cool
there's
to
a lot
see
of
a
stuff,
movie.
man.
If there was one casted today, who would you use as the actor for Benjamin Franklin?
Huh?
Frank Underwood.
Who's that?
Frank Underwood? Oh, yeah. That's good.
Who's
Kevin
Frank
Spacey.
Underwood?
Yeah.
I
Kevin
mean,
Spacey.
considering what he did and all that stuff,
Might be a shoe-in,
might be. Yeah, I mean, he was
Freak.
honestly, he's a great actor.
of course.
Honestly, one of the best actors of all time. I think he would be a great actor if anybody would give him a chance. But I mean, the guy's, he did what he did.
Give him a few years.
How tall was Benjamin Franklin? Do we know?
I think he was a tall man.
'Cause I'm thinking John Goodman's face with those glasses
Yeah, that'd be
and
good
long
fit.
hair.
That'd be good.
John Goodman as Benjamin Franklin, Roseanne as
Deborah.
Deborah.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Cool. So that'll be all for this week. RJ, did you have anything to add? Our audience member.
Yeah. So one thing I think Harrison Ford would be a kick-ass Ben
Nice.
Franklin.
That's a
Indiana
great
Jones,
choice.
Han Solo.
Harrison Ford.
Ben
That's
Franklin.
that's the Indiana Jones guy.
Yeah. Oh, because he's got all that, most interesting.
He's
man,
Hell yeah.
luggage.
I think we have
That's
a
a
winner.
good choice. Yeah.
So another thing
Joseph
too is on page 267, how Chris was saying things are like similar to today. He predicted whenever they wanted to tax the rich people to give more money to the poor, like welfare. He kind of predicted that they'd be like super lazy and take
Yeah.
advantage. And
Yeah.
how many people do you know today that do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's sort of what one of the American presidential candidates is, suggesting Andrew Yang
Yeah.
to give $1,000 back to everybody. And there's a lot of people that are saying, no, if you do that, everybody will just become lazy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, like you're saying, struggles they had back then, we still have it today.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's big difference is that you didn't talk about this, but he was like 50, 60, 70, and he was talking to girls that were like 17, 18,
Yeah.
16
Yep.
consistently.
Yes.
That's a little...
Right around
Yeah,
the
his
corner for
letters
Kevin
were
Spacey.
creepy. Like
Yeah,
he would
all the
Back
time.
Kevin
they were
Spacey.
borderline sexual, but
he's-
also
yeah,
telling
it's guys.
them what type of man they should be marrying and what type of woman they should be.
But it might be like just his way of not looking too creepy, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
really? I'm just giving you advice.
Because I mean, you have to
but-
understand, this guy was a social genius.
Mhm.
Mhm.
know?
Manipulative.
Maybe.
Of course.
Here's one question:
Go ahead.
Who? And you don't have to. We don't have to answer this episode. We can answer it next episode. We should think about this. Who, in today's age, is our Benjamin Franklin?
I think.
I hate to say it, but I'm thinking about Trump for some reason.
No.
Well, he got to where he is.
Yeah, but not thinking.
Who is
he's
today's-
totally different.
Who is today's
personality.
Benjamin Franklin?
Well, now he is, but
Well, Elon Musk.
I was just about
Yeah.
to say Elon Musk.
I was
Just
gonna
because
say
he
that,
uses
but that's,
what is available to like make everything amazing.
Yeah, but Elon Musk, sure, but Elon Musk doesn't have that the social skills that Benjamin
Good point.
Franklin had.
Very good
Not at all.
Like, he's super awkward.
Yeah, but does he like talk to young women and fucking talks about rape?
What about Jeff
I'm
Bezos?
thinking Trump, man. Jeff Bezos?
I don't know
much
enough about him.
I don't know.
He may be a good topic.
Like, yeah, Elon's a good choice, but he's like heavy on engineering.
But why?
Curiosity.
Like
yeah.
just his experiments?
Like, he's not very political.
No,
No,
not
exactly.
very social.
So
Not
he's
very
a
social.
there's Benjamin Franklin. Like you can't pinpoint someone that's just like him. Like he's a lot of people today.
He's
mixed
too
in
much
together.
Of everything. That's
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah. You know
You
what?
can't-
That could be our homework for next week.
Yeah.
He's a mix of which people?
Yeah.
Like Elon Musk and this guy and this guy.
Yeah, he's a bunch of characters all rolled into one.
And also, we need to remember that most celebrities nowadays are actors and actresses and singers. Back then, I think most celebrities were the leaders, right? They were held at very high regard. Now, if you put Brad Pitt next to fucking Donald Trump, most people will, well, maybe not Donald Trump, but if you put him next to, you know, somebody in a high political elitist, they would probably pick Brad Pitt. They'd want to go see him. They'd want to go talk to him.
Carl Sagan is who comes to mind. That was most like Benjamin Franklin.
Who's he?
He's a science communicator. He wrote the screenplay for Contact. He does show demonstrating science. He inspired JFK to launch the missions to the moon. Yeah, so he's all over.
How
It
about
could
Einstein?
be a woman too.
Yeah.
Einstein.
Einstein also.
Einstein that made a lot of work on how people interact and
That would be a good book too. Walter Isaacson, author
Also
of
wrote-
Einstein and Steve Jobs. Cool. Yeah.
Très bien.
Vraiment.
Basically, you need somebody that has influenced politics and other
Science.
industries.
Business.
Einstein did.
Maybe Einstein could be.
So we'll wrap up this bad boy for next week.
Yep.
I think we already have a few topics of what we'll cover next week. But as always, comment down below. Let us know what you're thinking. Help us choose the next book that we'll be reading after this one. Like, share the content, subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Hit that bell, and we'll see you next week. Ciao.